The scream tore through the quiet street like a blade, sharp and urgent, carrying fear far older than the small body it came from, and in that instant the female officer felt something inside her lock tight as the world narrowed to the shadow beneath the car and the child's outstretched hand. The smell of hot asphalt, oil, and dust hung heavy, and time slowed as the meaning of the warning settled in her chest with terrifying clarity, because danger was not approaching from the road or the crowd, but hiding low, silent, and patient beneath the steel. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes who rise when it matters most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope. Comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Diery so more stories like this can reach the right hearts. The girl belonged to a man who spent his days under cars, a poor mechanic whose hands were always blackened by grease and whose back ached with the weight of survival. He fixed engines that were never his, charged less than his work was worth, and walked home each night counting coins and prayers in equal measure. His daughter was his shadow, small, observant, and far too aware of how easily life could slip through cracked fingers. She had learned early that the world did not always listen to men like her father, and so she watched instead, learned patterns, noticed details, and trusted her instincts when something felt wrong. The officer had stopped nearby on routine patrol, the kind of day that blurs into every other until routine dissolves without warning. She had seen fear before, seen accidents and anger, but this was different because the fear was pure and pointed, coming from a child who had no reason to lie and nothing to gain by causing chaos. The officer's body reacted before her thoughts fully caught up, muscles tightening, breath shallow, eyes dropping toward the dark space under the vehicle where sunlight failed to reach. Training whispered caution, memory shouted risk, and instinct told her that hesitation could cost lives. The mechanic had been working just down the street, his tools spread on worn cardboard, when he saw his daughter run. He knew that run, the one that came only when something was deeply wrong. He felt the familiar helplessness rise, the knowledge that uniforms and authority often listened past him, not to him. He had been ignored before, dismissed as invisible, his warnings treated like background noise in a louder world. Still, he ran, heart hammering, fear sharper than any blade, praying that this time someone would listen before it was too late. The danger under the car was not dramatic at first glance, just a shape, a tension in the air, a wrongness that only someone who spent years close to engines and metal might notice. The girl had seen it because she had learned to look where others didn't, because she had watched her father work and understood that what hides beneath can matter more than what shines on top. The officer knelt carefully, keeping distance, scanning, assessing, and in that moment she realized how thin the line was between order and chaos, between a quiet day and irreversible loss. People nearby began to sense that something was happening. The street seemed to hold its breath. The officer called for backup, her voice steady even as her pulse raced, while her eyes never left the shadowed space. The mechanic stood close now, torn between stepping forward and staying back, knowing both could end badly. His daughter clung to him, her small fingers digging into his worn shirt, her warning given, her role played, now waiting for the world to respond correctly. When the truth finally revealed itself, it was not loud, not explosive, but it was enough to justify the fear that had frozen the officer in place. A hidden threat, easy to miss, deadly if ignored, sat where seconds before no one had thought to look. The street erupted into controlled motion as procedures took over, barriers went up, specialists arrived, and danger was carefully neutralized. Lives were spared not because of luck, but because a child spoke, a father believed, and an officer listened. Afterward, when the street returned to its ordinary noise and movement, something subtle had changed. The officer approached the mechanic and his daughter, not as authority, but as a fellow human being who had stared down the same fear. She saw not poverty or grime, but courage, awareness, and love shaped by hardship. The mechanic saw not a distant uniform, but someone willing to trust a voice that the world often ignored. No medals were given, no headlines written, but something heavier and more important settled between them: respect. The girl would remember that day, not as the moment she was afraid, but as the moment she was heard. The mechanic would carry the quiet pride of knowing his daughter had saved lives simply by paying attention. The officer would go on with her duty, but with a deeper understanding that heroism does not always announce itself loudly, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truth. As this story draws close to your heart, if it moved you, if it reminded you that awareness, kindness, and trust can change outcomes, please take a moment to like the video, share it with others, and stay connected with Grandma Diery by subscribing, because stories like this live on through you. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us what part of this story stayed with you the most, because your words help build a community where these moments matter. In the end, the street looked the same, the car drove away, and the world kept turning. But somewhere inside 3 lives, something had shifted forever. A child learned her voice had power, a father learned he was not invisible, and an officer learned that danger is not always loud, and salvation sometimes comes from looking under the surface, listening closely, and trusting the smallest hand pointing toward the truth.